Hello my lovelies and welcome back to BrittneyOriel, and thank you for tuning in yet again to another one of my videos. Today's video is going to be on violence and abuse. There are 5 types of violence and abuse, but in our society we tend to only focus on one, that being physical abuse. So because of that lack of knowledge and awareness, we end up in abusive situations, but because we aren't being physically abused or we're not being subjected to any form of physical violence, we don't think it's abuse. Something rings off in our mind that makes it known that something is wrong. And sometimes that doesn't even ring off, because if you genuinely don't know about the other types of abuse, how could you know that you're in an abusive situation? So if you'd like to know more about the different types of abuse for your benefit and the benefit of those around you, feel free to continue watching. So we begin with the first type of violence and abuse, that being physical abuse. Physical abuse is the intentional use of physical force. The intention behind this physical force is to control, harm, injure, disable, or kill. Physical abuse can occur with or without weapons and restraints. Now I'm going to give some examples as to what physical abuse can look like. This is not an exhaustive list at all, so please know that if you have any other questions as if this applies, go back to what the definition of physical abuse is. Physical force made to harm, to injure, to kill, to create fear. So we have hitting, scratching, pushing, shoving, grabbing, shaking, slapping, punching, using restraints or one's body size and weight, and using your strength against someone. For anyone in a physically abusive situation or someone seeking to never find themselves in a physically abusive situation, here are some tips. Document any injuries done to yourself. Now this can be in the form of videos, of photos, as well as documentations as to time and dates. Report every instance, no matter how minor it is. This is going to benefit you if you find yourself in a situation where you have to take legal action against someone. This is going to present you with the legal documentation of a history of physical abuse. Be very wary of split personalities, and in this case I'm referring to those that will be very upset and abusive in one time, and be it a few hours after, right after, or the day after, they would become very loving and affectionate and apologetic and maybe shower you in gifts and comfort and love and attention and everything that is the complete opposite of what you may have just endured a short space of time ago. This trait leaks into the type of abuse I'm going to talk about after this, that being emotional abuse. So in situations where you have split personalities like this, you are not only being physically abused, you are also being emotionally / psychologically abused. Ensure that you are not provoking, and I know that that point can be very controversial because there are a lot of people that say no matter what you do, you don't deserve to be hit. But I'm speaking in particular towards females, because I know that some females have a tendency to provoke and to push and maybe even slap or hit or shove their male significant other, and at the end of the day you are dealing with a human that has only so much emotional control. I am not defending the person if they retaliate and saying that you looked for it, but please don't put yourself in a situation to be abused, because then you are contributing to the consequences that you have to face. They are not fair and they are not justified. But if you cannot do something and not infringe on someone's own rights and their own emotional stability, then you will lower your chance of being physically abused. And yeah, again, emotional abuse is something real, and you can't emotionally abuse someone and provoke someone mentally and emotionally and be shocked and stunned when they have an emotional outburst, be it a shout or be it a hit. You are basically contributing to a toxic situation that is toxic to both parties. Make a plan to leave and share it with someone trustworthy and level-headed. Do not share a plan like this with your very emotional, immature friend. Do not share a plan like this with someone that loyalty is tied to the abuser, and by that I mean their family member or their friend that you believe is your friend, because they may still see their friend in a particular light, And if you come and tell them that you plan to leave without even realizing the danger that they're putting you in, they can tell that other person that you're trying to escape. So make a plan to leave, but please tell someone, of course, so that they know and you have that support and help and someone knowing what you're about to attempt in case something goes wrong. But please make sure it's someone that you can trust, someone level-headed, someone emotionally stable. If you have children, please do not tell your children beforehand. If you have very mature children and you think that you can trust them and they are emotionally stable in that realm, then that's your call. But my advice where children is concerned, if you are planning to leave, don't tell your children and secure your children first. So one of the first parts of your plan of that day or time that you plan to make an escape, secure your children first, because if that abuser has any hint that you are leaving or you have left, the first place they're going to go is after your children to use it as bait to get you back and to use it as a source to torture you by. It's again, this topic of abuse is very dark, but I'm giving the advice that I can and trying to be as level-headed as I can in giving the advice, because it's a very scary situation to try to leave a physically abusive relationship or friendship or professional workplace, all of these situations. So my advice is, I just want you all out of that, and I want you out of that in the best and safest way possible. So please take my advice. Escape to a place that is protected and is out of the knowledge of your abuser. Do not go to a friend's house, and a friend being someone that your abuser knows is your friend. Do not go to a parent's house. Do not go to a place that they know that you have a particular relationship with that person, because they are going to go to those places first to try to find you. So go to somewhere that is completely out of the knowledge, and leading up to when you are planning this time to escape and go somewhere else, make sure that you do not slip or mention this place, because your conversations leading up to when you leave are going to be replayed in your abuser's mind for them to try to find out where you could have possibly gone. Please be aware of trackers. There are trackers that someone can place on your car, and there are simple apps on your phone called Find Me, and certain apps that your abuser can link your phone to, so that when you leave they can actually go and they can see where you are on GPS. So please look at your location settings on your phone. If it is that you really think that this person has the potential of putting a tracker on your car, go to a garage that can look, or go to a GPS tracking place that will be able to identify these types of devices, and put all of this in your well laid out plan to leave. And my message to those that are not in a physically abusive relationship, no matter how perfect someone may look or act, please make your boundaries and your deal breakers very clear from the beginning, and always reinforce it. Make it known that you will not stand for any form of physical abuse, and by that I don't mean you ever hit me, I will hit you back. No. Make it known that if you ever feel emotionally charged and take it out physically on me, that will be the end of the relationship, that will be the end of the friendship, or whatever dynamic that you're dealing with. Make it very clear. If you unfortunately find yourself in a situation where you were subjected to physical abuse, there are two things that I can tell you. One, there's a chance you can get abused again. Two, if you decide to forgive that person, please make sure that that person gets some form of help. And by help, I mean even if they go and see a therapist for a few sessions to work out what made them physically abuse you in that manner. But that is not something to take lightly and to take an apology for and go about your merry way. Because again, you don't want to find yourself in a position where the next time it happens, it is escalated and you are even more injured or damaged. And then lies and cover up to loved ones of what is that scratch and bruise and all of those things starts. So from the beginning that you get into a relationship, a friendship, any person that is going from a stranger to someone that you know and someone that you share your life with, please make your boundaries Very clear, especially where physical abuse is concerned. And that wraps up physical abuse, and now we move on to emotional abuse. Mental abuse, psychological abuse, and verbal abuse is just another term for emotional abuse. Each one of those terms refer to what we're going to discuss now. Emotional abuse is an attempt to control. It is a manipulation of your self-esteem, your sense of safety, your relationships with others and yourself, as well as your perception of reality. It results in feelings of worthlessness and a sense of responsibility for the abuse that you're enduring. It uses words and actions to harm, control, frighten, and isolate you, whilst at the same time decreasing your self-esteem and your self-worth. There are many different ways one can emotionally abuse. I'm going to list out as many that I could have come up with, but this is in no way an exhaustive list. Threats, insults, yelling, screaming, cursing, constant monitoring or checking up, humiliation and intimidation, as well as abandonment as a form of punishment. So abandonment doesn't necessarily mean physically abandoning, but like abandoning in the form of not speaking to you or not interacting you, ignoring you, any form of you feeling abandoned. Isolation from friends and family, stalking, and gaslighting. Gaslighting is something that I'm going to talk about in another video. So here are some tips for anyone that suspects that they may be in an emotionally abusive situation, or for someone that would not like to find themselves in an emotionally abusive situation. Sometimes being in the situation, we are unable to see something that is clear and glaring to someone that is hearing the story. So share your experiences, share certain moments that you wonder, did I deserve that? Was that emotional abuse? So that you can get those questions not just answered by yourself, but answered by someone else with an unbiased perspective. Understand that frequency influences your belief system. And by that, I mean the more that you hear negative things about yourself or those that you love, is the more and more that you are going to believe these things are true. Emotional abuse is not something to take lightly, and it can mess with you for the long term, and you're going to have a lot of work to rewire and reprogram yourself. So please understand that if you have been in an emotionally abusive situation, psychologically you have begun to believe the things that you have been hearing told to yourself over and over and over. And now this can be made use in a more positive light pertaining to manifestation and speaking good things into your life and positive affirmations, telling yourself that you're beautiful every single day even though you may not believe it. Eventually you start to believe it, because again, as I said, frequency influences your belief system. So be aware that the negative things that you are hearing someone tell you, an emotional abuser, you are going to begin to believe it, and you're going to begin to believe that this is true. Document instances of emotional abuse, no matter how minor, be it an email, a message, recording a phone call, keeping a voice note, making a note of a book of certain instances that have happened, the date and the time and what these instances were, who were the people around. This is going to help you if you need to take this situation to a legal point. You don't know how drastic it's going to reach, so please don't take it lightly. If you ever feel like you were just subjected to emotional abuse, even if you think that you want to keep working on the situation, please make a note on your phone for your best interests for future you, so that you don't regret not being able to remember or be able to document these instances. If you are in a position where a lawyer tells you, okay, tell me everything that has happened up to this point. Record associated factors with emotionally abusive episodes. And by that I mean, if you have a good memory, log it in your memory, or if you have a note on your phone or a notepad, just make note of what were the surrounding situations that caused this outburst. Was it speaking to a particular friend? And I mean not on the abuser's side. So did they socialize with a particular person? Are they under a particular unique area of stress? Are they going through work stress? Did they drink? Did they use a particular drug? All of these are going to be factors that are going to help you make note of if emotional abuse is a pattern or if it was just an incident, a one-off scenario. Is it every time that they drink? Is it every time that they socialize with someone? You are going to be able to recognize or be aware of when you can possibly be abused and what are the particular patterns. To anyone that is not in an emotionally abusive situation and would not like to find themselves in a situation like this, communication is key. If something happens and someone does something to you or says something to you that makes you feel a way that you didn't like, you need to be brave enough to tell them. And I hope that someone worth your relationship and worth your time is going to be someone that sees your words and your communication as valid and worth understanding and worth adjusting, so that you all can come to a better compromise and a more mutually respectful ground. And please understand that emotional abuse is not real love. Love does not have fear, control, consequences, or punishments. That is not love. That is emotional abuse. And that brings us to the end of emotional abuse, and now we move on to financial abuse. This is done to control or exploit someone. It is a very, very powerful form of abuse. It is a common method for trapping someone in a relationship or a situation. They tend to stay or return to this abusive relationship because of financial abuse. Some examples for what financial abuse can look like are taking, withholding, or limiting their resources, forcing someone to give their resources over, forcing someone to sign documents, be it checks, making someone change what is in their wills, restricting or interfering with one's employment, hiding your bank accounts or your cards or your cash or your purse, hiding your debt from someone that is going to be affected by your death, that being in any form of marriage or relationship where legally you'll take on each other's debt, giving an allowance to someone and more so as a form of a treat for well behavior, and that being in the form of a treat, you would know that not receiving this allowance, it will be a form of punishment. Not giving someone their own money and ruining someone's credit. Some tips that I can give to someone in a financially abusive situation, and of course someone that wants to never find themselves in a financially abusive situation, are gain financial freedom. This can be in the form of gaining employment and hence getting a paycheck. It can also be in the form of having very quiet savings that you're putting aside every month. And it can also be in the form of getting a loan from either a financial institution or by a loved one or a friend or someone willing to give you a loan that you would gradually pay back once you leave the financially abusive situation. Increase your education and training level. This is going to open up opportunities, and that means no matter what age and stage you are in, you can still go back to school. You can do an online course, you can do a training course, you can learn a trade, anything that will increase your profitability in this market and allow you to make your own income. Assign portions of money to each partner. Yes, as a marriage and as a relationship, it's not yours or their own, it is ours. But if you sense that the person's personality may very quickly become controlling pertaining to finances, put aside what is for the home, what is for your spending, what is for their spending, so that there is never any person trying to push for a compromise that isn't in the favor of the other person, or anyone trying to control finances more than the other person is okay with. Weigh your options. Is the security that you're receiving in this financially abusive situation worth your peace of mind? Most of the time, and it should be all the time, it is never worth your peace of mind. You can figure it out, get yourself out of the situation that you're in. Make your boundaries clear. What is yours and what is theirs and what is ours. And to anyone planning to leave a financially abusive situation, please change your accounts or get a new account and transfer money over as soon as you can. Now, I am not saying to take all the money as a form of revenge, but enough that you can sustain yourself. Do it on a separate card, because most likely this abuser, depending on their temperament, they may go to freezing your accounts or taking all the money out and leaving you now escaping a situation without any finances to support yourself, to feed yourself, to find a place to stay. So leading up to you leaving the situation, open up another account in another bank, keep that card separate out of that person's knowledge and gradually put your money on that account. If it's one day that you plan to escape, then take all the money from that and put it onto another account as quickly as possible before your abuser suspects that you have left. And that brings us to the end of financial abuse, and now we're going to move on to neglect. Neglect is a failure to provide for one's basic needs. This can take the form of security, nutrition, supervision, education, attention, medical care, and social support. Neglect is done when someone who is responsible for providing care and assistance to one fails to do so. This can be done by parents, caretakers, guardians, teachers, and medical professionals, meaning it doesn't necessarily have to stay in the home. Neglect occurs outside of the home as well. It tends to be done to the vulnerable populations, that being elderly, minors, and disabled or mentally challenged. Neglect increases the risk of harm and sometimes causes harm to be done. Some tips that I can offer to anyone in a situation of neglect or anyone looking on to a possible situation of neglect are: install security cameras that you can see when you're away from the house. So this is going to help you if you have someone taking care of your elderly loved ones, if you have someone taking care of your young children. Please do background checks and contact the references that are listed on these people's resumes. That being babysitters, caretakers, teachers, all of these people that are placed in a responsibility for care and supervision. Do full background checks. Do not take someone's word. Do not be fooled by someone's appearance. Report any form of neglect. I will say it again. Report any form of neglect. If you are seeing neglect happening, if you suspect, you don't even need to be 100% sure. Leave that for the professionals to figure out. If you have any form of suspicion of neglect happening, please report. You can report to police stations, you can report to child protection units, to child protection agencies, you can report to Children's Authority in the context of Trinidad, you can go to a police station and make a report at their child protection unit, you can even call anonymous hotlines and make a report. But from the time you suspect or you know someone is being neglected of any form, no matter what their age is, you have a duty to report. And please handle these situations legally. As emotionally upset that you're gonna feel in seeing or witnessing some form of neglect, or becoming aware that neglect is being done to someone that you love or cherish, as much as you're gonna want to emotionally handle things on your own, please take the right route and handle it on a legal grounds rather than just doing something emotional that is going to end up in an even more worst, drawn out situation. Handle it the right way, be the mature one, handle your emotions and do what is right. Revenge is not always right. I know that there are people that are still going to want to take it in their own hands. There are people that are going to say that the legal system does not take these things seriously. But there are agencies and there are people that work very passionately against neglect towards the elderly, towards young children, towards the mentally challenged. So please take the legal route and make a report and let those officials handle these situations. Please do not take it in your own hands. And that closes off neglect. And now we move on to our last type of abuse, that being sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any behavior that impacts one's ability to control their sexual activity or the circumstances in which this activity occurs. It is sexual contact without consent. It is forced or continued acts after being asked to stop. It is touching or activity done to someone that is incapable of refusing. So by that I'm referring to minors, young children, elderly, mentally challenged, someone that is under the influence of any drug or alcohol, anything mind or behavior altering, as well as someone that is either illiterate, so they can't speak or understand what you're saying, as well as someone that is speaking another language, hence they cannot understand what you are saying and you cannot understand what they are saying. There are many different forms of sexual abuse, so I listed as many as I could have thought of, but in no way is this list exhaustive. Physically forced sexual activity or intercourse onto another or to self. Making someone feel fearful to say no. Forcing someone's participation with or without documentation, that being making someone record or take pictures. Forcing participation in demeaning or degrading sexual acts with or without documentation, denying someone contraception or protection from STDs. Unwanted flashing or exposure of someone else or of yourself. Unwanted sexting, so that is sending provocative text or pictures or videos on a device. And lastly, grooming. Grooming is a topic that I am going to discuss in an episode on its own. So here are some tips for anyone that unfortunately finds themselves being sexually abused or someone that has been sexually abused. Immediately report and share. As scary and as degrading and whatever other emotions you feel, tell someone and tell someone immediately. Get medical help as soon as possible. This is going to prevent any unwanted pregnancies as well as contracting any sexual diseases or infections. Do not bathe or dispose of your clothes after these situations happen. I know you are going to want to run in the bath and take off as much of the experience as you could, but your clothes, your body might hold vital sexual fluids that a professional can use to identify your predator. So please head to a medical professional, to a police station where they can swab and they can take these body fluid droplets and go and test them and get some DNA and get you as much justice as you can get and identify who your predator is. Do not protect the predator. If you protect the predator, you fail to protect their next victim. I don't care who it is, and I don't care what they said. You have a right to report this person, to make this person a predator, to ensure that they are treated like the predator that they were. If you protect this person's reputation and you do not report this person, how are you so sure that this person is not going to repeat it to someone else? And then what? You have a responsibility to not protect this predator no matter what they say, because you have a responsibility to the next victim. You could be their last victim, or you can be just another one of their many victims. And their victims could be younger or more incapable of dealing with any sexual abuse. So you have a responsibility to report your predator. Do not doubt children. I will say it again. Do not doubt children. I don't care how young they are, and I don't care how much you trust the person that they are saying is doing these things to you. I don't care how close of a family member they are and how long of a friendship you all had. These statistics and research show that predators are always found in the home. They are the father, the uncle, the brother, the cousin, the neighbor, the caregiver, the family friend, and then the teacher, and all these different people. Those are the predators that sexual abuse cases find. So please take the word of your children, no matter how young they are, and no matter how much you love this predator and see this predator in a particular light. Please believe your children and allow them to report and allow the professionals to investigate these situations. Prepare for flashbacks, for dreams, for emotional outbursts. Stay calm as you can. Journal, speak to someone, seek professional help. Being a victim of sexual abuse can become very, very dark. So please seek professional help. A lot of people see professional help as a stereotype, as a stigma for needing to go to a therapist, to see a psychologist, to have to talk to someone about how you feel, to have to get help. But you need help. You were abused, and you need someone professional to help you get through this experience. You do not have to see this person for the rest of your life, or maybe you do. Sometimes you may need a small amount of sessions, sometimes you may need longer sessions, but please seek professional help. If you have someone that you know, encourage them to seek professional help. This is a very disturbing experience. It can shape who you are and the life that you experience. So please seek professional support. Be brave enough to replay these scenarios and think about what you could have done differently. What you would have advised yourself to do differently. What are some things that you may have done to contribute to the situation? No, I am not saying that you're responsible or that you played a role in it or that you deserved it or any of those other things that people could jump up and say to a tip like this. No. But there are certain things that as the victim you can do and not do to either increase or decrease your level and possibility of victimization. So replay these scenarios in your mind and think about what you could have done differently. What were red lights that you ignored? What were things that you should have responded to more erratically? Allow yourself time to heal. Pause from sexual activity because certain things are going to make emotional outburst happens, and then that kind of causes some conflict within relationships, and can become a whole mess. So allow yourself time to heal mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually before you continue or begin having any form of sexual activity. If this instance makes it to a news broadcast platform, please do not read the comments on these articles. People can be very inhumane, uncompassionate, and unempathetic. So do not subject yourself to reading the comments that are below any article that is done on your sexual abuse scenario. And please be aware of the negative coping mechanisms that you can use, the behaviors that you can adopt. A big one being promiscuity. Because you were treated like you were just an object, you can now be okay with treating yourself like an object. Because someone took something from you, you can trick yourself into believing, well, I now want to give it to a lot of people. And that's your choice, it's your body, it's your vessel. But please be aware of the negative coping mechanisms that you can use if you do not seek professional help. And one of them is promiscuity. You don't want to be in a situation where you continuously do things and make decisions that lower your self-esteem and keep you in a particular place that is not healing and is more self-destructive, and your mind is justifying it and making it seem okay. But it is actually a very bad coping mechanism that you're using. And that brings us to the end of sexual abuse. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you learned something. I know that this video was a little bit on a kind of low mood, and it may have been very sad for some. It may have been very vulnerable for some. But please just share this video. Not for me, but for the people that need to know that they are in an abusive relationship. For people that need to know certain tips of how to get out of certain situations, of how to heal from certain situations. Please create a space for people to talk about abuse and violence. Be there to help someone. If you watch this video, you now have the knowledge and education to help someone in a situation recognize what their situation is. But by you sharing this video, more eyes see this and more minds gain this knowledge, and more abusive situations come to an end and more victims find their way out. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, comment your thoughts, and I will see you all here soon again. Bye guys. Let's get the show on the social. In a financially abusive situation. Controversial. Exam. Yeah.